For those that don't know your story as the head of clubhouse operations, it's quite the journey to get to Buffalo in the early 2000s. You've had quite the path from Philadelphia to here. So how did you get involved in working in the clubhouse in the first place?
It's a funny story because I told everybody that 86 Mets documentary aired this year on ESPN. That is literally the only reason I've worked in baseball ever. A friend of mine I went to high school with worked in the clubhouse. His brother was on the ground crew, and the Mets were coming to Philly in 86 to clinch the division. Their magic number was 1. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The boss said, bring some helpers in because it's going to be a mess, the party, the whole deal. Long story short, you can look it up. The Mets got swept by the Phillies. So I did not get to enjoy, even though I was a Phillies fan at the time. Would have been a wild scene to be in that clubhouse and, see that. But the Mets got swept. I was on the local news carrying boxes of champagne out to a truck, and then ended up working the rest of, I worked at homestand, and, the boss just paid us himself. I need help. Come on in. Long story short, after that, Phillies, hey, do you want to work here next year? I was supposed to go to college. Talked to my dad, said, I'll go to junior college and do this, and ended up getting down the spring training and worked in the visiting clubhouse in Philadelphia. From that point on, the following year was hired full-time and, did that for 6 years. Ended up heading to Wilmington, Delaware. I got out of baseball for a little bit. Family had a business and was in Wilmington, Delaware. It's A-ball with the Blue Rocks. And it kind of was, A-ball was, I was doing another job at the time and doing that. It was fun to be around it. Went to Wichita, Kansas with our manager and trainer. Don't ask me, never thought a guy from Philly would be in Wichita, Kansas. So he said, let's go. And I was like, sure. I was younger at the time. Longer story short, the Riches owned the AA team in Wichita. I was out there working for the Royals, spring training, ended up getting my foot in the door real good with their minor league system. But the job opened up here in Buffalo, and they reached out to the GM in Wichita before they looked around and filled it, just because naturally they own the team. And it, to me, it got me closer to Philadelphia back home. So naturally I said yes. And that was in 2003. And here we are still.
18 years later, what a journey it's been. I have to imagine, you mentioned the 86 Mets documentary on ESPN. We've seen so many times over the years where, the Red Sox, and we know Bob Stanley personally from his time as the Bison pitching coach, but, you had to empathize a little bit with the clubbies and the MLB officials who were dragging the champagne and everything out of the Red Sox clubhouse in Game 6, and all the, the chaos that ensued and all that we see behind the scenes now of that 86 World Series.
Yeah, you can't imagine. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but one of those 3 nights, I'm pretty sure it was Saturday. I got to go back and look it up. I think Friday night, the Mets maybe good, maybe they just got them good. I think it was Saturday. At one point, the Mets were winning pretty late. We'd set up the clubhouse and shirts on the lockers, and the same thing happened, not to that extent of the World Series. We had plenty of time, but I want to say the Phillies tied it up or something like that, and it was the same thing, like put everything away, and it was wild. I still had one of the 86 division champ orange shirts that you might see around, and I gave it to Jack, who had bat point for us for years and went away to college. He's a big Mets fan, and I figured, you know what, let this thing live a little bit, and he still wears it. Doesn't fit me either, so.
And I'm sure you have a lot of memorabilia like that throughout the course of the years, stuff you've brought in and kept in your office. I know, a Doc Gooden jersey that's very meaningful to you, or even the people you've met over the years, presidents of the United States that you've met. It runs the gamut.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Richard Nixon was in the clubhouse during a rain delay one year. We were playing the Mets. I was younger. I didn't know, I knew what I knew about him from, school, the little bit we learned about him, and he just knew who he was, and it was pretty wild to get a picture with him. The guy was such a controversial figure, and he was a real baseball fan. And Larry King was with him too at the time, who I would have rather get a picture with, believe it or not, because I was a huge Larry King guy. But yeah, I mean, people like that is just crazy to come through, and all the 76ers would come over all the time, and Barkley knew like Rick Sutcliffe real good, and Barkley's running around in the clubhouse, and you meet so many different people just through that. It was wild.
And we fast forward to your time here in Buffalo now, 18 years, and you've been here for pretty much the golden era of Bison baseball. The team won a couple of championships, 97, 98, and then you get to the early 2000s, and it's all the players that people that are my age and a little bit younger remember guys like Grady Sizemore, Johnny Peralta, Brandon Phillips, Cliff Lee on the mound, so many great names. And just having those guys come to the clubhouse and that atmosphere, that had to be, your first couple of years in Buffalo, and they're winning the division seemingly every year, going to the championship. And those had to be some fun times.
Yeah, man, I always tell people it's pretty crazy because I was with the Blue Rocks in 96, 97, and then went to Wichita for 5 years. And the Royals are just they great minor league teams forever. And in them 7 years, I think 1 year missed the playoffs and a couple championships. Came to Buffalo in '03, we were really good. We just missed the playoffs. '04 championship, '05 playoffs. I'm like, wow, this is something. And then, of course, we had a little bit of a drought. But, yeah, there was so many good players. In them early years with the Indians, man, it was wild. The guys that were in the minor leagues still, that nowadays they just wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
They would go up or they would stay up. Grady came back for the playoffs, and it was just, there were so many good players and so many veteran players mixed in.
And that's the thing is I look back on this past season, and you of anybody was so entrenched in it. We'll get into that in a moment. And I want to know all details about that for those folks joining us. But it seemed like there was a lot of similarities between the roster construction of those great teams in the early 2000s and of what we saw this past year. It goes beyond guys like Grady Sizemore. I add in guys like Ernie Young that were just great veteran leaders. And those are things that we saw in 2019 a little bit, the last full year of baseball in Buffalo for the Bisons. And then last year, the Blue Jays, again, started to really bring in a lot of those players that helped round out a great young core of talent.
Yeah, I mean, you had a really wild mix this year with veteran guys and then guys that were, not as much young guys and guys were organizational guys. And, the Christian Colognes and he was such an integral part of, I think, just keeping everybody together through the Trenton thing. And just, you see now he's coaching. So it was his last year, and he probably in the back of his mind had an idea, if this ain't it, it's getting close. And he's, guys, they've really enjoyed it. They embraced the situation we were in, I think, because a lot of guys didn't play last year or the year before. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we had a nice, mix that it did remind you of the older days, but the veteran guys and the younger guys, and then the pitchers and the, started to pop up in there and have success. And, you weren't sure. Zach Logan, at the beginning of the year, he came to Trenton. You knew he was, but I didn't know if he was just coming up or, it turns out to be that young guy that just has a solid year. He mixes in with all the veteran guys around him that have been up and down a million times. It was a good group.
Yeah, and then he ends up being, in the last couple of days, being named one of the organizational pitchers of the year, according to MILB.com. You're right, a great story. And, first start with Buffalo, it ends up being in Rochester, and he ends up being the Triple A's pitcher of the week. And that's kind of set the tone for his season with the Bisons in Buffalo and Trenton.
Yeah, there was a few guys like that, man, coming up, and with the COVID and the extra guys and the big legs and bouncing, and you just didn't know. Guys are coming and we're in Trenton, and then we're going on the road and coming back, and there's so much movement. But then a lot of these young guys ended up staying and really, playing a part, and it turned out to be, I wish we had playoffs because I think we had a really good chance at the end.
Yeah, and that's one of the things when you talk to a lot of guys like Christian Cologne, they said, just give us 1 week with Durham. We're probably the 2 best teams in the league. If you just give us a 5-game set, a 6-game series, whatever you want to do, it would have been a fun atmosphere to be around, in something that I think the players really would have had a lot of fun with.
Yeah, for sure. It reminded me so much of that Scranton year when they played in our ballpark and they played on the road all year. You're just like, wow, what a journey this is. And then, at the end, they probably figured, let's just go out and ruin everybody's year and win it, as a team who played in Batavia and Buffalo and Rochester and everywhere but Scranton.
And as we talk about now the Bison's journey from spring training to Trenton, then eventually to Buffalo, I think, to me, and you're a great judge of this, it starts with the manager, and Casey Candell, and somebody that I think really has a great pulse on the players and how to make it such an atmosphere that, it's easier to be in a situation like the team was in this past year.
Yeah, I said it right all along. Casey was the right guy at the right time. And the whole staff, Jeff Ware, Corey Hart, Devo, the guys that all been around, the new Jake and the new guys we had. But, it was Casey just was, I'll tell you a quick story, leading up to opening day, a couple days before I get to Trenton, and for whatever reason, we didn't have the correct COVID test and all that good stuff done. So I wasn't allowed to be in the locker room with the players. Even the practice day, I had to come in at 11 o'clock at night. And the first game, opening day, I'm literally sitting outside on a picnic bench outside of the clubhouse. And the guy who's texted me the most about, hey, this player needs this size pants and this hat is Casey, our manager. So, you think, have some other stuff to do on opening day, but that's just, whatever. He just went with everything, man. He just was great. So it was a weird situation, but and in the end, I'm like, where is this guy going to be mad? It's not my fault, but he understood the situation better than everybody.
And as we look back at now the journey that was the Bisons announcing they were going to go to Trenton, the logistics of it all, and then you and just a few people within the organization loading up a truck and going to New Jersey. What was that experience from when you found out of you were going to Trenton, or if you wanted to even go to Trenton, and then what it was going to take to get ready to go to that situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you know, it happened pretty quick. People don't realize that, we did not have a month. We had an idea, but there was a bunch of places being floated around and some things that fell apart. So we never knew. And it was literally a week to get into the stadium. I've not been at that stadium in over a year at that point. Not been there. Like literally stuff was stored when COVID first hit, and then the Blue Jays were coming the first time. I wasn't there when it got stored, so it was all over the place, as you can imagine. Storage unit upstairs and suites. We had to dig and find everything. Hope we found everything. Kurt Anderson jumped in. They brought him back, and he helped me, and we somehow got everything we thought we needed loaded. And thankfully, I came back before the season and went back to Trenton. There was a few things we did miss, but we got everything on a truck within, literally a few days, and drove it to Trenton and unloaded everything there. And then came back here, drove my car back, and waited for the team to come and figure it out there. It was pretty crazy. Not much time at all to find everything, get it together, and somehow I think we weren't missing too many things.
And what was that first initial experience with our friends now in Trenton, in the Trenton Thunder front office, and making it so that it was such an easy transition for yourself and for the players once they finally got there?
Yeah, I mean, it was first got there, and it was a little bit overwhelming. There wasn't a ton of space to be, and I was really like, wow, this is going to be something. Talked to them a little bit. Hey, can we do some, clear out some areas, just because we had all our Buffalo stuff, and then we needed to have that because we were playing on the road as Buffalo, being Trenton there. And then by the time I drove my car back, they had a whole third locker room was cleared out, became an area where they had used before for mascots and marketing and stuff that they weren't using with the situation we're in. So, I mean, they were great. They just gave us basically an entire room down the end of the hall. We could store all of our stuff and keep it out of the way because, it was a great setup for clubhouse wise and all, but storage and all that. Didn't have a ton of stuff, and we were using Trenton stuff here, our stuff there. So it was pretty wild when we first got there. I was a little bit overwhelmed thinking, man, this stuff might be in the hall for the next 3 months.
And speaking of being overwhelmed, to some extent, you go from the last time there was a Bison season, 2019, you have a staff of several people that help you on a regular basis. But due to the COVID protocols of the minor league, a AAA bubble, you weren't able to have as much support staff with you in Trenton this year. So what was that, the first couple of weeks of the first homestand, or the first, you mentioned not being able to be around the team for those couple of days because of the testing issues, and just trying to navigate with a smaller group, a lot of times just yourself, trying to do a daily, your job on a daily basis.
Yeah, it was a bit of a concern first getting there, not sure. And the limited numbers and all that, with the COVID, so many people in this bubble. We got very lucky after, before the first homestand, that people had worked in Trenton in the past in the clubhouse, the guy who did the visiting side and the guy who helped the home side he's been there forever. They were all in, they were excited, wanted to be part of it. So, I mean, it kind of was a problem that I thought was going to be huge, worked itself out pretty quick because the guy I had is incredible. Like, he could run the clubhouse without me. Uh, and then the visiting guy, Eric and Christian down there, they did it before. So it wasn't like, we worked together and everything like that, but it wasn't like, they were on their own. I was on my own. Just, it was long hours. It was a lot more, less help than I've had in the past, but there was also some other things that I weren't doing on the operations side that Brian Rock was doing there, which was, I just made, it was longer hours of staying there and doing clubhouse type stuff. That's what I started out doing. And in the end, it's not the worst thing in the world. You just get the things done. You stay there at night, you put the radio on, and, it beats a job, as they say.
Yeah. And the unique part of it too, you're living in Trenton, so you're also having to live in a hotel for the time that you're there. So, what was that experience for yourself like, going back and forth from Trenton and then, living in a hotel when you were doing your job?
Yeah, I mean, it worked out great. I had a nice Hyatt property that they do business with up there, and the visiting team stayed there, and it was perfect for what I needed. We didn't know if it was going to be a week, a month, 3 months. No one knew. Up until the time we were leaving, we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, people always ask you a bunch of questions about, I literally, would walk out at like 9:30 in the morning with a cup of coffee from downstairs, go to the stadium, and get back home at 1, get back to the hotel at 1 or 2 in the morning. So, I mean, it was a comfortable bed. It was a nice TV and a shower. That's all it was, but it worked out perfect. It was close enough, but far enough. And, it solved the issue. You didn't need to rent an apartment or anything like that. Like I said, we didn't know how long we were going to be there. So it was a unique situation, but the hotel end of it and all was great.
And it also allowed you the ability when the team was out of town. And the nice thing about last year's schedule for the most part was 2-week chunks of being at home and on the road. So you were able to come back to Western New York. I know we got in a bunch of golf when you were home, and you got to sort of see everybody again. And, for those little weeks that you were back, and feel a little bit like it was a little bit normal, I would think.
Yeah, it definitely worked out lucky because, I mean, obviously that's a drive that I've done since I moved here in 2003 to Philadelphia, which is only like, 30 minutes away a million times. So 6 hours in a car with the satellite radio is a simple deal. And, I was able to come home a few times, and we did 2 weeks was great. So, come home here. And then my wife was able to come out there once for a week when the team was just away for a week, but we were able to spend some time out there, and she got to go to, we went to the shore out there and everything like that. Was really, stuff's close. It's a really good area for if you have time, which in baseball, sadly, we usually don't, but you're so close to so many things, New York, Philly, and the beach. But yeah, I was able to get home a few times, was good. And it made it work. My wife understood the situation, and it's, could have been a lot worse. Like you said, we had them 2-week road trips a few times, and she got there, I got here. So it didn't seem like it was 3 months.
We talk about, the team gives out an unsung hero award every year, but your wife is an unsung hero for, allowing, you to be away from Western New York for that long period of time, and, making that whole situation work when I'm sure that couldn't have been easy either.
Yeah. I mean, the year we just went through with not working and all that good stuff. So I think it got to a point when it started to come about. And I mentioned to Anthony and Booch in the beginning, wherever the AAA team is, I'm good. Let's go there. Let's figure it out. It's only a few months. And she understood that, I mean, we both of us basically didn't work for a long time. And then I haven't worked since the end of the 19 season. So, and like I said, this is kind of since 1986 out of high school. Had a few other jobs, but that's all I've been doing. So it was awesome to have that one summer off in a weird way. But then again, you get scared because you don't want too many summers off at this point in this job.
I definitely hear that. As the season was rolling on last year, and the Bisons in Trenton were starting to win games and win series and take 5 out of 6, was there ever a point where you kind of got the feeling that there was something special building with this team before they even came back to Buffalo?
Yeah, I think early on, and, just in Trenton, and how the minor leagues are in AAA. It's a tough spot. Guys are up and down, and when you're in the big leagues, and it's a different world. It's a AAA is not horrible. It's a way better life. So I wasn't sure how guys are going to handle it, and from day one, everybody was amazingly all in, okay with it. You know, the only thing they didn't really like was the pinstripes that we had to wear. And we didn't wear the jerseys ever because of the Yankees and Trenton and their previous affiliation. But otherwise, everybody was just all in, man. It was, you know, it was just such a good group early on, you could tell. And they had fun. They had fun on the bus and embraced the front office in Trenton. And, you know, it was just pretty, you know, as much as you could with COVID, but hanging around them guys and you know, they really, everybody seemed to just go with it in the beginning and just handle it.
And I think one thing you mentioned early on plays into this as well is the fact that so many guys did not play in 2020 because there was no minor league season, and not knowing if you would have another year after this or if you'd have another game after the one you just played because of the way that things were shifting and changing. So maybe that gave guys a different perspective, maybe veteran guys, younger guys, whatever, that, you know, nothing's guaranteed at this point. So let's just go out and have some fun. And that kind of translated early.
Yeah, I mean, I know, you know, we had multiple older guys that were, you know, their option was maybe going to be go play in Mexico or maybe not go play. And then this popped up and, you know, it just was I think so many guys that said, you know what, we take this for granted for all them years. And, you know, the AAA it's a weird spot. I tell people, you know, you have the young guys and you got the veteran guys that are bouncing up and down are going to be back, or the 40-man guys. But there's also that group of guys that, you know, any years could be your end. This could be the last time. And I think we had a handful of guys like that really said, you know what, I appreciate playing this year after last year. And, you know, man, some of them went to Mexico and some haven't played. It was pretty wild hearing the stories of guys that didn't play. And so I think they appreciated it.
And it culminated in the division championship, the first for the Bisons since 2005. And, you know, something I haven't touched on much, but, you know, the fact that it is a new league for the Bisons in AAA baseball, no longer the International League. It was AAA East last year and only playing within your division. So I think one thing I'm looking forward to going into 2022 is playing teams outside of the division. And even though there's 6-game series still, you'll play Columbus, Gwinnett, Iowa, a team that Bisons haven't played in 2 decades, and seeing some of those other familiar faces that we've seen over the years.
Yeah, it'll be pretty neat. We've talked about how many times about Memphis and Nashville should be in our league, and they get in our league, and then all this happens, and here we are. But at least we're going to play some different teams, and I think that'll be really neat. And you know, people maybe want to come down and just get to see a different, you know, an Iowa Cubs and some different players. I mean, Rochester, Scranton, it's all nice. We play these teams so many times home and over the course of a year. I think over time in the next few years, it'll be really neat to see these different franchises come in.
You've worked in a major league clubhouse before, as we talked about, working for the Phillies. And when the Blue Jays came back to Buffalo last year in 2021, there was a multi-million-dollar coordinated renovation between the Blue Jays and the Rich family to renovate the service level of the ballpark to make it major league standard. I'm curious, what was your first reaction like when you came into the finished clubhouse? You know, maybe it was after the Trenton stint was up for you and, you know, came back, but what were your first thoughts when you saw the finished clubhouse and all the different things that you were going to be able to make your own in that place?
Yeah, I mean, I came down once when the team was on the road, came back to Buffalo, the Blue Jays were on the road. I was able to sneak down there one day and just see it, and it just was overwhelming with the Blue Jays there. I mean, you know, the scout that they're on compared to us and the amount of stuff they have and the equipment and, you know, how they utilize it. But I knew it wasn't going to be the same. You know, the visiting clubhouse was being used as the coach's room and all. But when we got here and finally got the lay of the land, and then it's amazing, man. I mean, I still to this day will walk into that door that used to take you to the back visiting clubhouse. Is now just a bat boy little locker area. I walk in there thinking I can go through it to the clubhouse. I mean, it's crazy. It's just, you know, I mean, it's an amazing place laid out wise. It's so big and has kind of everything you need, but yeah, it's still overwhelming what it, you know, how quick they did it and what it became. You just never imagined it down there. We always talked about renovation and what ideas and what we would do, and none of that stuff was ever in the plans.
And the thing that I always come back to is when I'm in the main player locker room area, that's where the batting cages used to be. And now the batting cages are outside. And, you know, when we walk into the ballpark every day to work, we walk right by the batting cages and they're state of the art. They're beautiful, but just how all that stuff had to be shifted and changed, and where do you put certain things, and how all that went into the plans of the renovation. That still blows me away.
Yeah, it's amazing. You think I remember coming down here at one point when I was loading up for the construction, and it was literally like 5 or 6 different jobs being done at once. You could tell, like different crews. That's how quick it was being done, and they were just like not even stepping on each other. And it's just amazing. The batting cages. I mean, the main locker room. You sit in there, and that's where you just really know, like this is different than minor league locker rooms and stuff. It's pretty legit. Just you've been down there in that weight room. It's an amazing setup. Just
it isn't something that Bison players will be able to take advantage of for many years to come. That's the beauty of all this. It wasn't done for 1 year and gone like the renovations that modifications for 2020 going forward. This is your setup for the very long term.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the whole leaving. We were in Trenton when there was the talk that we were going to come back here and all. Like people were surprised because there wasn't like the team didn't. A lot of guys were almost at that point saying, "Hey, you know what? We got family here. We got apartments here. We've been here 3 months. Is it going to be worth moving?" And it was a lot on them when they got to Buffalo and seen that place. Man, I mean, you seen the reactions. It was just like, wow. And Trenton was great. We got lucky there because we went to a facility that the Yankees had been in for years, and the clubhouses and all. They had video rooms and a food room and a weight room. And the front office couldn't have been any better. But when they came to Buffalo and just seen that place and said, "Wow, this is our locker room, this is our trainer's room," and the hot tub and the cold tub and things you just don't have, it was amazing.
And now that we are focusing on 2022 and into the new year, what are your preparations like for getting ready for the new season and hopefully having what is close to as pre-pandemic off season as we can have right now to get ready for the new year?
Yeah, I think there's amazing that people probably wouldn't understand, but there's some construction that's still got to be done. This place was built for the Blue Jays, and they were the only ones down there. There was no visiting guys, no umpires. They were all out in that massive facility they built, in the parking lot. So we're still trying to retrofit and make this place where everybody can coexist because there's a common hallway. And, we got some construction projects going on still, trying to just tighten it up and figure it out. And so it's, I was down there the other day and just yesterday and the day before, and there's construction workers and they're building this bathroom and a shower area. And so hopefully at some point all that's done. I mean, I got boxes of stuff and all that I still haven't even touched that I stored from 19 and my desk and my locker and just pictures. And I keep saying I'm going to wait until everything's done, everything before, and then we can get settled in. Hopefully that's maybe, this year is definitely the goal.
Well, Scott, I appreciate you taking some time today. It's been fun catching up. I always enjoy, hanging out in the clubhouse with you and the guys. Well, the last thing I do have to ask you about, because for the last 18 months, you and I have golfed a lot over the past 2 years together. What are your maybe favorite courses? Where's a place that you really like to play? If you have an off day on a Monday in the summer, what are those favorite spots you like to golf at?
I mean, Harvest Hill's just amazing, right? I mean, we're lucky enough to play there a bunch. We're lucky enough to have the freedom to be able to play it after 3:00 or whatever, when the rate goes down a little bit. But I mean, there's no better place to that than just sitting afterwards up there in that little patio they have. And I mean, that place is as nice as a public course could be, I think. So we were lucky. We played there a bunch, especially a couple of years ago. Great course.
All right, Scott, looking forward to getting on the links again with you this summer. And thanks again for taking some time and joining us here today.
You got it, buddy. Thank you.